Hello, thanks for watching. I'm Zach Larez, aka Slyraptor Z, professional storyboard artist for movies, television, music videos, commercials, maybe some video games soon. And I am also a dungeon master of about 3.5 years, a player of about 4, and the organizer of Adventurers League at my local game store. So I thought if I wanted to make a video, if I can't make a commentary video on this subject, I probably can't make one on anything. So with that said, let's go ahead and watch the video. Oh, but going into it, I should mention a few things. I did watch this trailer about 3 times. I watched the monster manual breakdown where they discuss several of the monsters that appear from Wizards of the Coast, with a couple of the creative directors there. I watched the cast interview to confirm some of the character build suspicions I had, that you probably had the same. And I watched Bob the Builder's video as well. We were of the same mind about pretty much everything. He was more familiar with some things. I'll include his video at the link, in a link at the bottom. So let's go ahead and hit play. Actually, before we continue, a little bit of background about this. So I'm gonna talk to you like you are maybe a basic player, like one of the basic players that comes into the game store who has played a little D&D. They are excited about it. They're interested. They have a player's manual, but they don't know a lot of the stuff that the dungeon masters will know. They haven't spent hours and hours watching the YouTube videos about lore. By the way, Mr. Rex is a fantastic channel to watch. I'll include his link at the bottom. There's a couple others that are escaping my memory, but I'll put those at the bottom as well. Oh, Jordan with a PH is another one. But anyway, so some more background. So you need to know about the companies involved. Dungeons and Dragons is owned by Wizards of the Coast, and Wizards of the Coast is owned by Hasbro. I forget how long ago Hasbro acquired them, but it wasn't too long ago. But for the longest time, for a while, Wizards of the Coast was in with several other companies in a division, and then fairly recently they were made their own division, I believe. So Hasbro is really pouring in a lot of money, doubling down on this whole D&D thing. They want all of you to be nerds and to spend all of your money on TV shows, movies, video games, paraphernalia, everything. And for those of us who love the game, we couldn't be more thrilled. So when I first saw this news about this movie coming out, you know, a year and a half ago, and then they showed like the behind the scenes photos, a lot of people online were really concerned that it was going to suck. Which, by the way, if you haven't seen the trailer already, please go ahead and stop this, watch the trailer first with sound, enjoy it, and then come back and watch this video, because I'm not going to have audio playing. But when we saw those photos, the dread was real, because there had already been a Dungeons and Dragons movie that came out with one of the Wayans brothers. I don't even know existed. No one talks about it. Apparently it's one of those like deep dark secrets that people just don't bring up. But apparently it's really terrible. So I fully intend to get drunk and or high and watch that with my girlfriend and enjoy that old movie. I love old bad movies. But anyway, so there had already been an attempt and a failure, and people were worried that this was going to be just a cash grab. And then a fair amount of people were also worried that it was going to be mishandled, that they were going to do the old take the title, slap it on a movie that did not honor the source material at all, just a cash grab. And if you didn't like it, well, there must be something wrong with you. You must be some kind of ist or a phobe or whatever, you know, has been the common, you know, company stances and approaches to negative reviews these days. So we're a little concerned. It had Chris Pine, and Chris Pine has generally, for me as a viewer, not let me down. So I like to think he and his team are very good about selecting projects, and that's about all we knew for a while, or at least all I knew. And I have to say that I am very, very thrilled with the way this video looks. It looks like it was shot competently with the competent directors, good cinematography, good VFX, good storytelling, and writing. Extremely important. Writing is the #1 thing that lets me down in all media these days. We desperately need good writers. The other thing I had to say was, above all, it seems like they really made a full-hearted attempt to honor the source material, to make a Dungeons and Dragons movie that contains Dungeons and Dragons. Who would have thought? What a crazy idea. So with all that background information, let's get into the video. I'm going to stop it constantly. So first it gives us a little quick sizzle. Shows us a few quick battle scenes, some magic, some teleportation, a dragon, fireball or whatever that is, meteor hitting a shield, and then we go into the proper trailer. Oh, I guess I should turn on the CC so you guys can see what's being said. Opens up on the water, a ship on the water off the coast. Which coast? The Sword Coast. For those who don't know, Dungeons and Dragons is part of a body of lore called the Forgotten Realms. And the idea is, if a story or a setting or a character is in the Forgotten Realms, it will be in continuity with all other places, characters, and things in the Forgotten Realms. So if you go to a city named, in this case, apparently this is the city of Neverwinter. In one adventure, in one book, you can open up another book and it will reference Neverwinter, and you will know that it is referencing the exact same town. So although it is fantasy and there is so much made up by dungeon masters and players, it's all based on one cohesive body of lore. It's been carefully thought out and planned and explored through the multiple editions and multiple books and multiple minds, but there is an attempt to make things continuous and cohesive. So this is all in the Forgotten Realms. And in the Forgotten Realms, the stories take place mostly on a planet called Toril that is like Earth but different, on a continent called Faerun, and 90% of the adventures take place on a small part of that continent on the west coast, northern west coast, along a stretch called the Sword Coast, a stretch of coast called the Sword Coast. And toward the northern reaches of that coast is this town, Neverwinter. And apparently it's called Neverwinter because although it is to the north where it would be cold most of the year and snowy, it's never winter there. It stays warm and snow does not fall and cover the place. This is what I understand from other YouTubers. I haven't run an adventure in Neverwinter, so I'm not really familiar with the lore. But apparently that's what this is. And we're on a boat. One of the best ways to get around in those times, coming in to this port. Is that some kind of balloon above the Colosseum? Bob the World Builder said he's not familiar with this Colosseum, so this Colosseum might be something additional that a liberty that they took for the movie, which I'll reference later. But they probably did take some liberties, and I think they're definitely allowed to take some. And I'll touch on that later. Anyway, let's hit play. Here's the thing. We're a team of thieves, 4 of them. And here, my brain, whenever I see this constant, like, same color marble and walls and everything, if it's anywhere close to yellow, I automatically want to scream out that it has to be Baldur's Gate, because Baldur's Gate is made from yellow stone. Is it limestone? Completely. It's like etched, the whole city is etched out of limestone. But I know that that's probably not the case here. But I want to say that when I see it, but it's probably not. It's probably Neverwinter. In fact, I know it's Neverwinter because Bob said that these flags back here are the crests, or the emblems, the heraldry of Neverwinter. So, but anyway, here is a statue which Bob pointed out will be significant if you take a good look at it. But the characters themselves, this apparently is a bard. slash maybe maybe a rogue. I mean, it's a band of thieves. For none of them to be a rogue in a band of thieves, something went wrong. But we have a bard, and she apparently is a tiefling druid. But again, I think there's probably some multi-classing going on, because she doesn't really strike me, even just her outline doesn't strike me as a druid. Druids are supposed to be, well, classically, they're supposed to be of the wild, you know. They're commonly depicted wearing leaves and wearing, you know, using wood instead of metal, and only leather sparingly, you know, kind of like a wild child, you know. And while she could be a bit of a wild child, especially being a tiefling, she doesn't strike me overly as a druid. So there might be some multi-classing. I think there might be some warlock in there, would be the first thought. Maybe some sorcerer, but I would say she's like a warlock druid. And we'll come back to these classes later. And then apparently this is a sorcerer. He could have very easily been a wizard behind her. Well, let's see if we get a closer shot. How about that? But anyway, and then the last one is Michelle Rodriguez. She's a barbarian. But I'll wait until we get a closer shot before I go into detail. But oh, like this, like when we push in on him. But yeah, you can look at him here. Yeah, Chris Pine, bard. Then the girl, druid, tiefling, sorcerer behind her, and a barbarian. Shot of something underground, the Underdark, undoubtedly. And these dwarves? Are these gnomes? What are they? Looking around, it would definitely be... In my mind, they resemble gnomes because they're not thickly bearded and very stout. And I'm talking about the statues. And apparently, way back in older editions, dwarves they weren't always necessarily super stout, thick. They could be a little bit more lean, but the thick beards definitely is a thing. And these statues don't seem to have the beards. So if you're thinking about a subterranean humanoid, no beard, seemingly stout, shorter in stature. I mean, they're oversized statues, but the proportions make them seem smaller. I think that would mean that they were deep gnomes. Deep gnomes, also known as Snurfnevlin? Snurfnevlin? Let me see this. Smurfneblin? Swerfneblin. No. Swerfneblin. There we go. Got it. Swerfneblin. Sorry, it's been a minute since I came across that creature. Swerfneblin. Subterranean offshoot of the gnome race who inhabit Glorian's dark lands. Okay. And here they are. Here's another character, a paladin, leading the way. They're on a classic treasure hunt. They've solved a puzzle, and they are being rewarded with a gift, treasure, which is some kind of magical helm or helmet. And apparently, at the same time, they're referencing getting a treasure for someone that they shouldn't have, but I don't think they're necessarily talking about this helmet. They might be talking about this red horn that is visible later. Another shot of Neverwinter. Chris Pine looking dope. Okay, here's a battle scene. In the foreground here, we have some kind of barbarians or excuse me, or nomads. In the back, we have mounted cavalry who apparently are being supported by a dragon, a black dragon. And interestingly, by the way, these soldiers, they do not look like they are good soldiers. They definitely look like evil soldiers. Someone on Reddit pointed out the fact that this dragon is attacking in a fashion, what's the word? Pertinent or accurate to how the description of how it attacks in Dungeons and Dragons. I think it's like a 5-foot line in a 30-foot, like a 30-foot stretch. Hold on, let me look it up. Let's see. Black dragon. Where is it? Adult black dragon. There we go. Actions. So it's definitely a black dragon because it looks blackish, and if there was any doubt, it's not spewing fire or any other element. It's some kind of sticky, dark substance, which is probably acid. And that is what the black dragon breathes. Acid breath. The dragon exhales acid in a 60-foot line that is 5 feet wide. Each creature in that line must make a DC 18 dexterity saving throw, taking 54 acid damage on a failed save or half as much damage on a successful one. So as this dragon flies in, it is spewing a 60-foot line of acid 5 feet wide. I wouldn't say I'm an uber nerd or uber geek or anything, but man, that makes me feel all warm inside. Watch this. Woo! Look at that line of acid. Although it's probably like 10 feet or 10 feet wide. Maybe with the splatter, it's wider. Paramount, E1, a Hasbro company. So far looking great, guys. Running, sense of urgency. There's the horn I was talking about. Is that the magic item they were referring to in the trailer? Maybe. Probably. This person, no idea who that is. Now this, at first I thought, okay, this probably isn't Vecna. I mean, that's like nowadays everyone knows Vecna because of Stranger Things. I didn't think, nor did I hope that they would put Vecna in the very first movie. But it's clearly some kind of cult. In fact, I thought it was the cultists going on. These aren't zombies, so it's not a necromancer. I thought it might be a necromancer. They're alive, although they're very still. So I thought cultists, especially since you see there are multiple of them. And then Bob the World Builder said something which I had forgotten about, which is there are people called the Red Wizards of Thay. Thay being more inland to the east from the coast, and it is a land completely dominated by wizards, by magic users, in the worst way possible. Totally fearsome wizards you do not want to cross. And in D&D, in Faerun, there's the Red Wizards, and then there's the Arcane Brotherhood, which are also a bunch of wizards you do not want to cross. But the Red Wizards of Thay, their reputation truly, truly precedes them. Very fearsome. So if it's the Red Wizards, that's pretty sick. They all look bald and similar, though. I didn't think they all necessarily looked the same. She's using some kind of spell there, maybe shield, to stop the arrows. Here is what looks to be time stop, a spell. But I thought the time stop was only allowed the person casting it to move around and everything else is frozen. But apparently Chris Pine's character is able to move, and apparently the sorcerer is the one casting the spell. There's something radiating from him. Or maybe he's using a magic item. But that was definitely some kind of time stoppage going on, which is pretty sick. It's pretty cool to be able to have matrixy type effects like this and have it totally justifiable. Dungeons and Dragons was around longer than Matrix. I don't know about time stopping, but spells and these kinds of cool effects were definitely OG. So you can't fully blame them for copying other things. In fact, what's really cool about Dungeons and Dragons is, I'm not religious, but it's kind of like reading the Bible, where if you read it and you understand it, then other stories kind of make sense, because other stories might have drawn inspiration from that work of literature. So Dungeons and Dragons is like the original, the OG, where everything else, or so many other beloved properties are derived from. So can't really blame them for copying anything. In fact, a lot of other things have copied D&D. So let's go continue. This forest, not much to say about it other than notably you can see there's some kind of red growing around the bottoms here, along the bases of these trees. If I had to, oh, there's a big ass spider right there. I didn't see that before. Yeah, I was gonna say it might be some kind of like indicator that they're like, never mind, I'm not gonna say it. But yeah, there's a big spider. Nothing, just a bunch of trees. Nothing to say. Here they're talking about going into a tavern for a drink. Classic D&D trope. Gotta love it. When I first started playing D&D, I thought it was kind of lame how it was a trope and how it just seemed like really unimaginative to just always be at the tavern, like getting your next job or meeting an NPC or this or that. But it actually makes a lot of sense, because if you're not from, well, that makes me think of something called a murder hobo, which, if you didn't know, is in D&D, you're playing as an adventurer traveling around to all these different lands, looking for treasure and killing monsters, and a lot of the time also doing battle with and perhaps killing other humans. But you don't live in any of these places. You're just traveling through there, killing things and people. So that's where the term murder hobo comes in. Murder hobo. And it's especially used to describe players who have a tendency to just want to kill everything. Just travel around just killing everything, not trying to negotiate or understand or find alternative methods of dealing with problems. Just kill everything. So anyway, so when you think about it, it actually makes sense if they're traveling around a lot. If there's an inn or a tavern, that's where they're going to gravitate toward when they come into a town. That's where they're going to go. That's why it exists. So it makes a lot of sense. And, you know, a lot of people coming and going. That's where you're probably going to pick up a job. You're going to hear about the farmer down the road whose daughter got abducted by some creature from the woods or something, or, you know, something like that. But yeah, in typical D&D fashion, they're gonna go talk about their plan over drink. Love it. This shot. The spine of the world, Icewinddale. Now, when I started playing D&D, I started around season 9 of Adventurers League, and the main book was Descent into Avernus. And that was all about like the hells, the 9 hells. Baldur's Gate was one of the main cities, El Terrell. But for me as a DM, when I started DMing, the first book, the first adventure, the adventure setting that I learned was from season 10, Icewinddale, Rime of the Frost Maiden, set in Icewinddale, far to the north where it's frozen. It's basically Alaska. It's Alaskan fishing villages, basically. And to get there, you have to go through this mountain range called the Spine of the World. And in art depictions, also on the magic cards, the mountains here are shown in this very distinct fashion, in this like angular, slanted look that can resemble a spine. So Icewinddale, I love it. It's very dear to me. I'm so stoked that they're going to Icewinddale. This place, not sure. Definitely feels northern also. Now, here they are in a prison, and this is something I learned from was it the Monster Manual? Yeah, video from the creators. Chris, was it Perkins? Apparently they created this prison that appears in the Icewinddale book. It's called Revel's End. Revel's End. It's a penal colony, prison. Well, maybe not a penal colony, but it's a prison out in the middle of effing nowhere in the frozen north. Well away from all the other villages, against the water. It's a, you know, you can access it from the sea of moving ice. But this was apparently the movie was in development while they were doing the book, and the movie people came to the Wizards of the Coast people, and they asked for a prison, if there was any prison that they could put into a movie, and they couldn't think of a good one that had already been established, so they made one, and they put it in Icewinddale book. So it's pretty cool. She's got an axe with lava. Now, is it super hot and that's why it's red? Nope, that's clearly some kind of... Well, maybe it smelted that way, but it looks pretty magical to me. It's like magma, like smolten metal. That could go either way. Notice this. This chick is strong. Michelle Rodriguez. All right, so I'm Hispanic. Obviously, she's Hispanic. So a little part of me was like, oh, big surprise. The Hispanic chick playing the tough girl again. Stereotypes. But in this case, it works. It's cool. And, you know, it makes sense. You know, if some of these towns are supposed to feel like, what's the word? Analogous to European Middle Ages towns and cities, then if you're going to have someone darker, then it makes sense that they're from more of the outlands, you know, from more of the tribal areas. It makes sense to me. I'm not going to argue with it. But what's notable about this fight scene is, like, look how she freaking throws that fully suited knight, full plate armor, up into the air, into the ground. They did that sequence so well. It looked really sick. How about I actually hit play so you guys can actually, like, watch the thing. Boom, roll, up, smash, sick. So she's clearly very strong. In real life, could someone do that? It would take the strongest of men to be able to do that. I doubt someone like her could do it. I definitely couldn't do it. But it's fantasy. It's fantasy. People forget that all the time. All these arguments flying around on the internet, this and that and that and this, that doesn't apply. It's fantasy, guys. It's made up. If we want it to be bound and restricted by some of the lame constraints we have in this world, why are we going to make a whole new world and put those same constraints on that world? It seems pretty sick. So the fact that she's throwing this guy up in the air and slamming him down, if she's a barbarian, that's what she does. She's strong. She's aggressive. She throws people around. She smashes shit. That's what I want to see. You don't got to talk to me about, like, you know, man, I almost don't want to say it, but like a lot of these other movies that come out where they say things that just ruins the whole fucking thing. They don't need to say anything. Just show me a brown chick throwing soldiers around, smashing the shit out of them, and I'll say thank you, daddy. Speaking of which, here we are. We move on to a paladin. Looking pretty cool. Nice character design. And then onto this dude real fast. I'll just go ahead and keep playing here. So apparently this guy's a sorcerer. I thought he was a wizard. I thought maybe he was like some kind of apprentice wizard, or I almost said acolyte, but I think acolyte is for clerics. It's like a underling cleric, like a person in study. But apparently he's a sorcerer, so he doesn't have a spell book. His magic comes from inside him. He can summon it up and channel it through his body. He doesn't need to read a book or use his wits and intelligence to to understand and unravel the mysteries of the weave, which I have to remember I'm supposed to make this video for people who don't know a lot of this stuff. The way magic works in Dungeons and Dragons in the Forgotten Realms is there's this invisible weave, kind of like the Matrix, that's behind everything, and kind of like gravitational fields. An object that exists on the material plane will bend the weave. You know, the weave will bend around its existence, around where the space that it occupies, and things that happen, causations. There might be some things that qualify as science in D&D, but most of it is explained by the weave. So if you don't necessarily have physics and science causing reactions and reactions, then the substitute for that is magic, which operates on the weave. So the weave is a lot of times responsible for reactions, and you know, point being, a wizard will study this weave and learn how to manipulate it. A sorcerer, there's something inside them that allows them to interact with the weave intuitively without having to fully understand it, like a wizard does. So a wizard needs books and learning and smarts, and the sorcerer might just, like, there's a wild magic sorcerer where they might just get really emotional and the magic will just fly out of them dangerously. So apparently this guy's a sorcerer, so they say. He's using this helmet to cast a spell. People have said it's thunder wave, a burst of sound that it's like casting a square in front of you. So this makes sense from a point of origin. So I guess that magic item allows him to cast thunder wave as a cantrip. Maybe not as a cantrip, but at will. That's not the expression either. Never mind. So it's probably Thunderwave. But also, interestingly, if it was Thunderwave, I'm pretty sure it would upset the other objects in the room around it. Thunderwave is supposed to be pretty destructive. So I don't know. It could be the movie makers maybe overlooking that. And again, if they don't get everything completely right, totally fine with me. Totally fine with me. If they want to purposely change a few things here and there, fine with me, because it looks like overall they made great effort to get the big important things right. So if they want to tweak the smaller things, I don't give a shit. It's fine. These blue orbs, people don't seem to know what they are yet. Looks like we're still mostly in Neverwinter. Some kind of destructive force is tearing through, destroying everything. Yeah, look at that wave, goes through, smash, smash. So now that we had a good look at her, this character is a Tiefling. If you don't know, a Tiefling is basically related to a devil. Hell does exist in D&D, but it exists in layers, 9 layers of hell, kind of funneling down to the deepest layer where Asmodeus himself, aka the devil resides. But really all those creatures down there are devils, so he might be the main devil, but there are plenty of devils and archdevils, and there's a devil in charge of every layer of hell, and they all have like their distinct personalities and powers. So anyway, so a Tiefling is somehow related to the devils. That's why she has horns, and then you'll see in other shots she also has a tail. I thought she might be some kind of like satyr kind of character. But she's not. She's a Tiefling. Also, her skin is not colored. Most people who watch, who are new to D&D, they're familiar with like Critical Role, where the Tiefling there is like blue skin. Tieflings a lot of times have colored skin, like reddish color skin, purple. But she doesn't. She has normal skin, which I think is a great choice. I think it's a good choice to give her normal looking skin. Pointed ears. I'm trying to remember if pointed ears was necessarily a trait of tieflings. I feel like it's not. So she might be part elf, part tiefling, or part devil, or maybe part gnome, part devil. She's not really built in proportions like a gnome though, but she could be. Anyway, if you look at her clothing, I guess it does look, I guess it looks a little druidy when you really look at it, but it's like greenish. It just seems too neat for me. The idea with a druid is their whole existence is with nature. They're always out there. So to see such clean looking clothing, I mean, it could have been given to her. They could have found her and she might have been wearing something completely different. And they said, this isn't going to do. If you're going to hang out with us, you got to wear clothes. So they might have made her put this on. So could be. Oh, so here's someone tied up in leather armor. Okay. And some soldiers, some baddies, I guess. Or they would be the baddies. The soldiers, unfortunately, in these stories, a lot of times are going to be the bad guys. And the horse rears up and turns into an owl bear. That's right. So, hey Zach, how about you actually play the video for a little bit so people can enjoy it, and then keep talking. I'll wait. Cool. So if she's a druid, well, first of all, that would be like the main giveaway to everyone that she's a druid, is the fact that she's changing from her normal form into an animal, which is like the druid's MO. They always be wild shaping. But there's a few things to consider. So with wild shape, the person, the spellcaster, can change their form into an animal, but it's completely magical. So their mind, their brain is still exactly them. They're the exact same person mentally. In fact, they use the same mental intelligence scores and wisdom scores, I believe, but their physical form is different. So they get more hit points. They're stronger. They're faster. They can see in the dark. You know, they can fly. But it's a magical transformation, and people online, rightfully so, are immediately saying, technically she couldn't do that because an owl bear, because wild shape only allows them to turn into a beast, an animal. But an owl bear is classified as a monstrosity because the story goes that wizards used magic to combine an owl and a bear to create an owl bear. So it's not a naturally occurring beast. So if they stuck to that rule, then as a druid, she couldn't wild shape into an owl bear. But there is a spell, polymorph, that would allow her to turn into an owl bear. But the downside is, I believe polymorph does change your mind as well. So you actually become the animal that you got turned into, I believe. And then there's true polymorph, where you turn into the thing and then you stay the thing. But so it could have been polymorph cast as a spell, but the fact that she had enough wits to then jump up onto the horse like that makes me think that she's using her normal brain, so it's probably wild shape. So if this is a liberty that the filmmakers took, totally fine with me. Downside is, no, DMs are going to have a lot of players insisting on turning into owlbears, which I guess doesn't really bother me too much. Just as long as owlbears stay scary. You want the scary creatures to stay scary, and as Chris Perkins mentioned in a video, already owlbears are being cutified, and you know, people want to take home an owlbear chicken, shit like that. But an owlbear don't care about you. It will tear your entrails out and slurp it up. All right, owlbears are to be feared. I don't care how cute they are. It's weird what people think are cute. Yeah, fearsome. Oof. Savage, love it. Apparently that was the same dragon that was a statue before. Now it's alive. Okay, so this is obviously a spell. Bob said Dimension Gate? Dimension Portal? Dimension something? Dimension Door. I think it could be Arcane Gate. Is that what it's called? Let's see here. Was it? Oh. Arcane Gate. Yeah. Anyway, she used some kind of spell to essentially teleport, go from one place to another. Love the way that they did it. Super sick. Oh, so smooth. Love it. They did so many things right in just this trailer. But you can see her better. You can see, like, definitely the tail, but also where are her weapons? Because the traditional weapons of a druid are usually a staff or a wooden shield and a scimitar or a vine whip. She doesn't seem to really carry any of these things. So if she doesn't rely on weapons, she can use magic. She must be relying on magic also as the main offensive, defensive ability, which again would make me think she's got some levels of Warlock. And if you guys don't know, Warlock is a class where the characters have some kind of connection with devils. She's a tiefling. She's also related to devils, which, by the way, tieflings apparently, I always thought, for the longest time, I thought tieflings were like, you know, a devil had sex with a human or an elf somewhere somewhere in the past. But apparently there's also magical reasons for it. Like apparently there were some wizards who tried to make a deal with a devil to be able to cast some higher level spells, and the trade-off was that they would take on the attributes of a devil themselves. So, and then their descendants, you know, would then be tieflings. So, there are different ways to wind up as a tiefling, some involving sex and some not. But the link between the devils and that kind of dark evil magic is there. So for her to not have levels of Warlock, I think is a missed opportunity. And here she's casting spells, like doing like essentially the D&D version of a Nightcrawler Bamf. Well, that might be Misty Step, but you know what I mean. So I think multi-classing is definitely a thing in this movie. But anyway, in she goes. Shh, sweet. Spelunking in the cave. Okay. I haven't heard anyone say it yet, but to me, there are multiple scenes in the Underdark, in the dark caverns underneath the surface. We've already seen the one with like those old statues that were like crumpled, and I thought those might be gnomes, Snurf Nephilim. I think this might be a Drow City. I don't want to get myself too excited, but it might be the Drow City. It might be Menzo Baranzan. Maybe. Menzo Baranzan. The Drow City. The city from the books of Drist by R.A. Salvatore. Drist Duorden. Born, raised, learned how to fight in Menzo Baranzan. Drow, if you don't know, are dark elves, subterranean elves. They were originally written as having ebony skin, essentially black, shiny skin, but white hair. Over the years, it kind of turned into, I mean, like World of Warcraft came out, and this kind of tendency to have Drow with like purple skin became a thing and kind of stuck. And then there was a whole political hoopla about not having dark skinned creatures be bad. So having black elves be bad was bad. And then having like apparently even having orcs as be bad was bad. It was, I don't know, there was a lot of fucking Twitter nonsense. But anyway, so the Drow were essentially originally ebony, and then it turned into purplish, and then I bring that up because we're going to see something in a minute. But their cities in the books were, this is like what I would picture when I would read about the city. And although they all can see in the dark, they have dark vision. They can only see like as if it were dim light. So it's like living your life only by candlelight. Wouldn't you want to have some brighter light, a brighter light source around? So the fact that they have their cities lit up like this is believable. That's the way it would be. And there would be different houses in the Drow society, and the different houses would have their own towers that would also climb up these columns here, and then there would be wars between the houses, and whole columns would be destroyed, and the other houses would pretend like it didn't happen. Anyway, so this may or may not be Menzo Baranzan. I think it looks really beautiful and sophisticated to be a Duergar city, which is another possibility. A Duergar are dark dwarves, underground dwarves, which also again have darker skin. But yeah, beautiful city. Probably Drow. Hope it's Drow. This guy. So the reason I brought up the Drow in the first place was we get a shot of this guy. And the Drow are a matriarchal society. The women are in charge of everything. They're also the strongest fighters. Men are basically their servants and playthings. It's fantastic. I love it. But the question is, who is this person in the Underdark? The setting itself, if you look around, it doesn't look like that city that we just saw. The city we just saw is darker with like greenish lights, bright lights. This looks like there's like some kind of like lava or smelting going on around it. There's ruins. I think we're back in the same underground location that we saw earlier in the trailer. Because my fear is that this could be a Drow. And if this is a Drow, it would be the first strike, really. But I don't think that they made this a Drow. Because if this was a Drow, I think the reasoning would be they just decided to sidestep the entire issue of elves being Drow being dark and bad. And they just said, you know what? If they're underground all the time, they're going to look like a lot of other underground creatures, and they're going to be pale. And we'll just screw the whole thing. We'll just say, look, they're pale, no issue. So that's a possibility, but I don't think that they're Drow. They could be stone giants. They could be half stone giants. They could also not necessarily be a subterranean race. They could be some other race that's down there for some reason. He could be a human. But he has markings on his head, some tattoos, which is a lot of times giant shit. Giants love tattoos. His blade starts to glow green, which to me instantly it's got to be Green Flame Blade, which is a popular spell. Green Flame Blade. Yeah, I think it's a wizard spell. I know fighters use it. Eldritch fighters use it. But yeah. The idea is the idea is he can strike someone with his sword and the flames will jump to other creatures around the creature that he struck. But as far as the armor, like if this is what Drow armor looks like, I think they missed a lot of opportunities. It doesn't look terrible, but Drow armor has the potential to be some of the sickest, most awesomest shit you've ever seen. Because Drow basically take fighting to the highest art form. So you would expect their armor to be top of the line, beautiful, stunning, meticulously crafted. This looks, you know, this looks more like welded and worn, and doesn't seem like something that a Drow would wear proudly walking down the street to me. So anyway, this is like a really long way of saying I don't think this is a Drow. I was afraid it was, but I don't think it is. But oh yeah, see, look, we're back in the same location. I don't know why there was any doubt. This looks nothing like the city we just saw. So the other city we saw, I think I'm gonna call it. I'm pretty sure that's a Drow city. And if it's Menzo Baronzon, oh, I'm gonna have to take a man break. Maybe, so these things might be these things. I mean, that would make the most sense, right? I don't think he had pointed ears, though. These look like the ears are kind of pointed. Yeah, his ears are maybe a little pointy. So maybe they just decided Sverfneflin aren't small anymore, just for to make filming easier. Maybe they just decided they can just be more normal sized. I don't know. They're all bald. Giants are bald. These could be giants. Isn't that a band? They could be giants. Yeah. Giants don't necessarily have to be the biggest thing you've ever seen. They can be half giants or something. Those tattoos look a bit sinister. Now they are pale and bald, and we saw those characters earlier in the trail who were pale and bald, so maybe they're just the same people as the Red Wizards of Thay. Maybe they just you know, they change their clothes to be more inconspicuous, you know? This is like the assassin detachment to sneak in and kill them while they're in the Underdark. I don't know. Hold on. Okay. Back at the Coliseum. This is probably not a fireball. That's not how fireballs work. Someone said meteor. Bob the World Builder said meteor. This is definitely shield. Sweet. What's that guy's name again? Hugh Grant? The mayor / ruler everyone loves to hate. Love it. Mimic. I've never actually put a mimic in my game. I need to. Everyone loves mimics. Mimics can be essentially anything. Non-biological. it can look like a dead body, but you know, it can look like a person, like a body, but it can't move or anything. It would just have to be like, look like a lump of clothing or something. They can be doors, walls, tables. Sick. And they're sticky. Once you get stuck, you're pretty much, well, you're stuck. This is sweet. They're in the Coliseum. This is pretty smart. They went Pokemon Arena on this bad boy. They're like, we want to feature some of the best creatures in D&D in a short amount of time, hour-and-a-half movie, 2-hour movie. How can we do it? Solution, fucking Pokemon Arena. Here's a Displacer Beast. Originally from the Feywild, which is occupies essentially the same space as the material plane, but in a different dimension, kind of like in Stranger Things. Stranger Things, those creators, obviously, because they put D&D in their show, they're obviously inspired by D&D. So the, what's it called? The Upside Down is clearly inspired by the Shadowfell, which is a shadow dimension that occupies the same space as a material plane, but it's different, just like the Upside Down. And then if you go to the other side of the spectrum, if you go to the brighter, lighter side, that is the Feywild. And that's where the Displacer Beast is from. It's a kitten slash, well, not kitten, but, you know, it's clearly cat-like, jaguar-like. Tentacles, 6 legs instead of 4. And the cool thing about it is it can appear to be someplace it is not. It's displacing its image. So it's really annoying to try to hit them. But they're jumping into a gelatinous cube. Which is fucking amazing. Look at that. Love it. So the gelatinous cube is essentially invisible. The only way you can actually see it is if you're seeing the sediment that it picked up. And it moves pretty slowly. But if there's nothing inside of it, you can't see it. It could be right in front of you and you'll walk right into it and you'll get stuck. Like this guy. And while you're stuck inside, immediately, of course, you're going to suffocate. But also it is acidic and it will start dissolving your clothes, your armor, your flesh down to the bones. So usually, the classical way of seeing a gelatinous cube is with a mostly dissolved human corpse in it and some gold and swords floating around, some treasure. I forget if it can dissolve gold and silver or if it just takes a long time, but you'll usually see some treasure floating around. So maybe some cool weapons you want in a gelatinous cube. But for them to all jump into it, they must have a plan of getting out, because that is a death sentence. That's a plan so crazy it just might work. Oh, I love the way they depict them jumping in there. I can just watch that a million times. Love it. Hold on, let me go back, sorry. So believable. Yes. But the way that the Displacer Beast attacks almost makes it seem like it's not necessarily just attacking them. Like you could be attacking something else off camera as well. Because if yeah, see, because it jumps past them as it opens its mouth to attack, and it doesn't even look back at them or attempt to redirect or anything, or swing and a miss with its tentacles on the way there. So it might have not necessarily been attacking just them. And if it is, then that might have been a little bit of a whoopsie directorially, but here you see that, well, we're not in the Coliseum anymore. We're on the city streets, but they're doing battle with one of these red wizards apparently, She is turned into an owlbear. And the red wizard does a misty step. Great way to get out of any situation. Now that is the Daredevil Bamf. Also here, I'm pretty sure this sorcerer threw magic missiles. Or I think there's something that's like ice. Ice spike? Or am I thinking of mind spike? There might be some kind of ice projectiles. But to me it looked like magic. But I think magic missiles are often depicted with purple instead of white. Or whatever that is. Whitish blue. Did he hit her? Because the thing about magic missile is they don't miss their target. That's what makes them really sick. They're like guided heat-seeking missiles that will do like the anime thing where they just spin and twirl all around until they eventually find their target, but they always find their target. Like in D&D, you have to roll a certain number when you make an attack in order to hit what you're attacking. And with magic missile, you don't roll that. Just automatic hit. So there's no evading them either. If you can see something, you can hit it with a magic missile. So maybe it's not magic missile. And there's only 2 of them. There are usually 3 magic missiles, so don't know. Eldritch Blast, maybe? Maybe? Could be Eldritch Blast, but it came from a sorcerer. Eldritch Blast, I believe, is from a warlock, or is it from? I'm having a little bit of a mind blank here. Oh, maybe it is sorcerer. Oh, is it warlock only? Normally exclusive to warlock. Okay, well, maybe he multiclassed into warlock. Maybe he did. Maybe he made a deal with somebody in order to get a little bit more powerful. Who knows? Maybe he felt like he needed to become even more powerful to deal with these red wizards of Thay. And he did things a normal person would not do under normal circumstances. This dragon apparently it has a name. I'm not going to look it up right now, but the lore goes, and I learned from Bob and from watching a couple other videos that oh, was it the well, I guess it just answers some questions here. Well, the lore goes that Duergar, dark dwarves who live underground in the Underdark, Duergar, they have a red dragon that they pamper and keep abated and keep appeased. And in return, the red dragon fires their furnaces. It's a pretty sweet arrangement. Because normally red dragons are some of the worst dragon, or they are the worst dragons. Very proud, boastful, greedy bullies. To have a symbiotic relationship with a red dragon is very hard for anything other than kobolds, which undoubtedly get killed all the time by the red dragon. But so that's why this one looks so fat, because he's essentially a fat house cat. He just gets fed and sits on his ass all the time, just belching out some flames here and there. Keep the dark dwarves happy. So I guess to answer some questions. So I guess the scenes from earlier with the statues, I guess that is a Duergar those are Duergar ruins, I guess, even though they don't have beards. I'm trying to remember if I've seen Duergar depicted without beards. It's possible. I don't know. Anyway. And that's if it was Duergar. Yeah, it had to be Duergar. Because Sverf Neblin wouldn't care so much about their furnaces. It would only be dwarves. Okay. Yeah, so running across the bridge, slide down. This really cool shot. Now, a shot like this is a little cliche. Could be super easy to get wrong and look kind of silly and stupid. Not the case here. They do it really well. Epic flying leap, sword overhead, killing blow, critical hit. Great action. And this little banter here at the end is actually pretty cute too. She's like, what do you bring to this? I make the plans. What do you do? The plans are already done. Well, if the plans fail, I make new plans. I also make plans that fail. Love it. It's good. Good writing. Good writing, good acting, good timing. It's good. Oh, so in that also, he reveals that he makes the plans. So if he's a bard, there's some subclasses of bard that I think are that kind of center around planning. But when you say planning and you throw in the word thief around, you got to think of the mastermind rogue. That's their thing. The idea is they're masters of the battlefield. They can bestow benefits to the other members of their party to carry out these plans. So again, I wouldn't be surprised if there was some multi-classing here. Which obviously, in that reality, they're not thinking to themselves, "Oh, I'm multi-classing as a bard and a rogue." They are what they are, and to us as game players, they fall into these classes. But yeah, I did notice her axe looks a little bad on her back, but totally forgivable. Everything else looks fantastic. Oh, also, she's got tattoos. And in the interviews, the cast interview, Michelle Rodriguez mentioned being interested with her characters, concerning her character being interested about the magic, but the director is wanting to focus more on the strength first. And for a barbarian, yeah, there's some barbarian subclasses that have some magic use. But there wasn't much to go on. But her having the tattoos, in D&D, there are magical tattoos. In D&D, there are scrolls, spell scrolls, that you just read the scroll and it's like a spell ready to go. You don't need a lot of the knowledge that you normally need. You don't need the spell components. The spell is concealed in the scroll and you just read the scroll and it casts the spell. They kind of have the same thing with the tattoo where you can cast the spell from your tattoo. So the fact that she has these tattoos is interesting. Could be spells on demand. Oh, also earlier, I meant to mention this earlier. The fact that she was like so unbelievably strong throwing these people around like that, the soldiers. She could have had a magic item. She could have had a belt of hill giant strength, which would definitely allow her to do something like that. But yeah, I think this is the last good look we get at everybody together. Great ensemble. I want to see his ears are kind of pointy. Yeah, his ears look pointy to me. So I would fathom he's a half elf, because a full-blooded elf, generally they don't have normal like human skin coloration. There's usually definitely something going on with their color. Like it's like, you know, it's like copper, like wood elves are like copper earth tones, but like not like black or brown or anything, but like reddish, or the, you know, elves will be like purple or something. So he's probably a half elf. Which, you know, which would also go with him as an actor, because, you know, to me he looks mixed race, so for him to be a mixed race elf and something else goes hand in hand. The other thing I was gonna say is yeah, no, but I think I feel like I can already get a read on this character. Most of them really. There was something on the tip of my tongue, and that was, oh, yeah, because a full-blooded elf in D&D is unmistakable. There'd be no question in your mind that they're a full-blooded elf. So this is probably a half elf, which is also a very common race for people to choose in the game. Because you get dark vision, you get bonuses that are really, you know, really desirable. So, oh, you don't have to sleep. You don't have to sleep 8 hours. You can meditate for 4 instead. Elves don't sleep; they meditate. It's trancing. It's called trancing. But on this, since we were just talking about race, I just want to say this real fast to anyone watching this video. Please, please, please. Well, hear me. This is just my opinion. These are all just opinions out there. These are just opinions. Everyone has different opinions. This is mine. Remember that race is probably not the right word to be used in D&D. A lot of times when people say race, they mean species. Because a human and an elf and an orc and a gnome and a halfling, they're not different races of the same species. They're different species of creature, if you want to use scientific terminology from our reality, which is not this reality. Point being, if people want to start throwing around the R word and everything, just remember that the R word doesn't really, it's not being used properly in this context. So I just want to throw that out there real fast. It's just, I love the game so much. I love the characters. I love all the creativity, but we just keep hitting some of the same hurdles and speed bumps, and I just would like us to all move past it. And I think this movie is a great way to move past it together. It looks like a really great celebration, done really well. Super stoked and excited. Let's see how this ends with the joke, and then he's like playing, was that a lute at the end with a little hop, skip, and a jump? Love it. March 2023. Ooh, boy. Let me check to make sure. Okay, well, it's been recording this whole time, so this hasn't all been for naught. Oh, better stop that before something else happens. They wouldn't copyright strike me, would they? No. All right. So that has been step 3 of the whole video. I guess I'll put it on something. There we go. Oh. So with all that said, thanks for watching. A few thoughts here at the end. D&D is a great game. I really love it. I got involved with it a little bit later in life. Oh, and by the way, if you just came for the video discussion, it's done. Thanks for watching. Hope you come back, like, and subscribe. See you next time. Moving a little bit on beyond that, I just have to say, like, I just love the game so much. I started playing a bit later in life as a full-grown adult. Didn't really have anyone to introduce it to me when I was younger, which I'm not faulting anyone. But if you are someone who loves playing D&D, and you have an opportunity to introduce a younger generation to it, I really encourage you to do so. It's a great gift. Parents, if your kids have any interest in D&D, please encourage them, help them explore it as much as you can. So many lessons to be learned. Negotiation, people skills, problem solving. You even learn some lessons in courage. There's different personality types that are going to come to the table that you have to learn how to deal with, and you have to work together and cooperate. You're going to have disagreements and infighting, and it's fantastic. And then that's all not to even speak of just using your imagination and all the enjoyment that can come with that. Because D&D, they write these books, they create these creatures and these rules as a jumping off point. But for the dungeon master and the players, they can go in so many different directions from there. It doesn't have to be just what's in the book on the page. So in a way, essentially it could be anything you want it to be, in a role-playing game. It's great. And that's why it's been the basis for nearly all of the most popular role-playing games to come along since. Anyway, you guys already know that. Most of you guys already know this. I'm just saying that for the few people who, by chance saw this video and didn't think about these things before. But the last thing I want to say is, if you don't have a chapter of Adventurers League where you live, maybe think about starting one. If something doesn't exist in the world, you can be the one to make it. Adventurers League, if you didn't know, is kind of like a standardized D&D, because just like I was just saying, how D&D can be shifted and adapted into whatever the DM and the players want. Adventurers League is a standardized D&D, a way to play D&D, so that when you go to any location, doesn't matter where you are, and they say that they're an Adventurers League game, you know exactly what to expect. They're going to run the game according to the rules in the books, and the characters, the monsters are going to be as they are in the books. And everyone there is going to be playing their characters made according to the rules in the books. And you have fun. You level up your character after you complete the adventure. And then the next week you could get on a train, go 2 states over, go to a store. And if it's Adventurers League, you'll play another game and you'll have a very similar gaming experience, being able to use your same character from the other game. And everyone is going to honor the fact that you leveled the character up and that you earn certain magic items. So you'll get to use those magic items. So you essentially always carry around that character with you wherever you go, that you can always play at any Adventurers League game. And people use something really cool that I've seen, is people use Adventurers League games, or groups at like game stores and libraries and schools, mostly game stores. They use Adventurers League as a way to meet other players that they like and get along with, and then they form their own groups. And DMs go to Adventurers League and they get a lot of practice. They get a lot of experience dealing with different types of players and different character builds, but also they find players that they like to DM for, and then they can extend invitations to those players to come play in their home campaign games. So Adventurers League, one of the big benefits is it's what's the word I'm looking for here, like melting pot, or it's a talent pool. It's a pool from which to meet people and get a gaming group going. Yeah, it's really good for that. But anyway, that's mostly it. Thanks for watching, guys. I made the screen grab very large, so hopefully this doesn't get taken down. But anyway, I'm Zach Larez, aka Slyraptor Z. I am a professional storyboard artist. I work on music videos, video game hype videos. I worked on some movies. Hopefully I work on some other movies, bigger movies. And yeah, play D&D. It's a great time to be in this hobby. See you next time.